Hello, my name is Bob Kreitz. I'm with Grass Valley. Today, my very special guest is Ed Collins.
Hello.
Ed is a technical director and a director for various sporting events, some of which include NASCAR, NFL, MLB, PGA Championships, and NCAA Men's Final Four basketball. Recently, Grass Valley just introduced a brand new product called the K-Frame XP. The XP is capable of doing true 4K, single raster, uncompressed 2160p. But in addition to providing brand new products like the XP, Grass Valley is committed to the development of the entire family of switcher product. In that family is a K-Frame X. We have a K-Frame X with us here today. It is interfaced with a Cayenne panel 4-stripe. Ed, as you think about the evolution of the K-Frame X, what are some of the tools that make your job easier?
Well, Bob, that's a great question that I could talk about for a long time because there's so many favorite things. But let's just hit on a few of my favorites right now. And probably the biggest thing is the fact that no matter how complicated this switcher or how powerful this switcher gets, and how it evolves, it still feels like a Grass Valley switcher. All the buttons still feel the same, and my next transitions feel the same. My emails, my macros, the way I build and record my macros, all that stuff remains the same. So it still has that Grass Valley legacy feel no matter how powerful the mixer gets, and it's getting very powerful. Another thing that I really like is the menu. And so on the menu, I can go and just select, let's say, one of my tabs at the bottom, another tab. I can go 3 layers deep in the menu, and that's as deep as I'll ever go. So it makes it real nice and easy to navigate. I also have a history. And the histories, every time I select on something, I get a new history is recorded, and I can go back and look at my history where I've been, and I can select and jump back to the things from my history. I can also go into favorites. I can save 10 pages of favorites and make those part of my show. So that's a really nice, powerful feature to have. Another thing that I really like is the fact that I can run multiple menus. And so right now I've got just any PC will do this, but I've got on my Surface tablet, I said, I'm running a second menu that's totally independent from this menu. So I can go through, select any one of these setups right here in this menu, and it doesn't affect this menu at all. I can log in wherever I can log into this switcher, whether it's in the next room, in a different truck, a different part of the studio, or even in a remote location. I can log into it and control this switcher, which makes it really powerful. Another thing is, because effects are getting so complicated these days, I'm going to call up a 12-box effect. And what we have a thing called panel mem. And the panel mem remembers a whole entire panel configuration, and I can change that on an effect-by-effect basis to match the configuration of my panel to the effects that I have. For right here, I've got a 12-box going in 4K. And I'll see I'm switching in my upper left box. I can come down here, switch in another one. There's my upper right box. Come down here, switch in my lower left box. But I've got access to all 12 of those boxes right across the entire mixer because Panel Mem set that up for me. It's another really great thing.
Ed, you mentioned earlier that K-Frame X works with both SDI and IP. What do you find useful when you're working in IP?
There's several things that are useful, Bob. And one thing is 25 gig SFP support. So that means that we can do single wire uncompressed 4K over IP. And when we start to think about all the different IP possibilities in the switcher, you look at inputs, outputs, video, audio, ancillary. We can have different IP addresses for all those, plus the redundancy that goes with those. If you want to put in the redundancy, it becomes an awful lot of IP addresses to configure. So we can go into the bulk configuration tool, and we come back here, and system start would be my first input number. System end would be my last input number that I want to configure. We put a starting address in, which octet we want to change, which increment we want to make it do. And then as soon as we get all that entered, we just hit enter, and the switcher will configure all that for you. So once that's configured, then another great tool is import-export. So we can go and import-export, and everything that the switcher just configured for us, we can export to an Excel file, modify it into an external computer, and import it back in. And so it does all that work for you. It's a great tool to have. And another thing, too, is that we also have NMOS ISO 4 and ISO 5 support for discovery and configuration from external devices.
Ed, I understand that on the K-Frame X, there's a mode called Easy 4K. What is that?
It's a great tool for TDs, Bob. And so if I go into engineering and go into my video settings, all these 4K modes here, as soon as I select that 4K mode I want, for example, we're in 2SI, as soon as I do that, the switcher's going to go out and grab all available MEs. For example, we have a 9 ME system here, so it grabs 8 of those MEs and makes 4 4K MEs out of it, with 1 ME left over of 1080p ME left over for mixing into that 4K show, or maybe put it into another suite for a whole different type of show. The other thing that we have is a lot of DPM power. So in 2SI mode here, I've got a 12 box called up, and these are all uncompressed DPMs. And notice that the middle column is my 3D DPM. So I have 4 3D DPMs in here. Another great feature, too, here is in my image store. Let's say if we have a native 4K image, a 3840 by 2160 that we need to import, whether it's a movie or a still, the system will convert that, let's say, to 4 1080p slices for 2SI, or the 4 quadrants if you're in square division, so it imports that for you. Another great tool that we use a lot of times in 4K is we also do HDR shows. And we have 4 suites in this switcher. We can go in and define a different HDR mode for each one of those suites. So that makes it very powerful and versatile.
Ed, can the K-Frame X be controlled remotely?
You know, Bob, it's a great question, and we hear quite often, and the answer is yes. So all these frames up on this slide can connect to all these control panels. So either those control panels can be locally near the frame, or they can be a mile away or even up to hundreds of miles away and get with a good connection. I also have a KSP here, a soft panel running on this tablet, and if you connect this tablet onto the network, it can control any one of those frames, or you could use any one of those control panels from a remote location.
Ed, thank you so much for your time and expertise. And thank you for joining us for a whirlwind tour of some of the things that the K-Frame X can do.